Hey guys, in this video I'm just going to go over my current headspace with melee patch, whatever you want to call it, this current patch coming. So just kind of run through everything, stuff that I think is OP and all that kind of stuff. So first thing, main takeaway, this is number one. Endurance charges are now 4% damage reduction to elemental and physical. Basically they reduce damage from all hits and dots by 4% minus chaos damage related stuff, but this is crazy. This like shaper beams and bleeding and everything in the game is just going to be giga mitigated. All your fizz hits, just endurance charge makes your character OP. More the better, and then all the endurance charge centric ascendancies are going to be really good. So this would be like Hierophant, 4 minimum endurance charges. Juggernaut, obviously the main endurance charge guy. Slayer, Masterful Form node is good for endurance charges. Basically, you need endurance charges, want endurance charges on any build you're playing. Minimum endurance charges on like rings and jewelry, whatever crafts are really good for the classes don't really have much access to getting endurance charges, and then finding a way to generate them is important as well. So endurance charge is the main thing. Play a build with endurance charges. Also, this is going to, they nerfed armor on D term, so it gives a lot less flat. It's like half the flat. So the main thing here is we're probably skipping determination on most builds, but at the same time, you don't want to just run around with like 3,000 armor on builds, especially if you have no like evasion or block or anything like that. So it's important that not only do you have endurance charges, you probably want some amount of armor. Obviously more is better. You don't want to run around 2-3k, whatever, probably closer to 10k minimum, I would say. On most of these, like especially these melee archetypes, like 10k minimum, I would say. In many cases, you want 20-30k plus eventually when you got gear. So armor rolls on your gear, helmet, gloves, chest especially, they matter a lot. So make sure you are paying attention to your armor, your actual armor value on your character. It will matter a lot. This video is sponsored by boot.dev. Ever want to become a programming god? Well, now you can with boot.dev. You will learn back-end web development from start to finish in the Python and Go programming languages. The folks at boot.dev believe the smartest way to learn code is to make sure that you're never bored. Boot.dev is online, self-paced, and feels like a captivating RPG game. The platform is designed to get you writing a ton of code because getting your hands on the keyboard and shipping projects is the only real way to learn. Many members of my family have done a lot of programming in their occupations. It is a strong, reliable career path with amazing earning potential. According to Stack Overflow, the median salary for back-end developers in the US in 2023 was over $100,000. The boot.dev Discord community is active and there to help if you ever get stuck on your coding challenges. Click the link in my description box and use my code ALKaiser to get 25% off your first payment for boot.dev. That's 25% off your first month or your first year, depending on the subscription you choose. Thanks boot.dev for sponsoring this video. So the next thing here that stood out that I think is interesting is the actual mechanics of the aggravate bleed, because they were kind of confusing. And basically, the aggravation, what's it called? Jagged technique on gladiators, kind of dog shit. It's very bad, actually. And in a lot of cases, it won't even give you like hardly any DPS gain. I think vulnerability, and there's also some on the tree, have chances to aggravate, but basically, the way it works is, first off, it doesn't work with Crimson Dance. We already assumed this. And then a hit that aggravates bleeding on a hit doesn't aggravate that initial hit unless it's the gladiator, and that's the only one used for this. But if you proc aggravate at any point on a target, all the current existing bleeds will aggravate, meaning you only need some chance to get, if you're playing a bleed build, to get all that damage mileage. So if you're having to play like, I don't know, like an 8 attacks per second kind of build, like Lacerate, let's just say, playing Lacerate Bleed, you're playing 8 attacks per second. Whether you have the Gladiator's Jagged Technique or like, say, like 10, 15, 20% chance to aggravate bleeding, the DPS of your character is pretty much going to be the exact same. Basically, this passive is pretty dog shit. It's really bad. And Vulnerability Quality has Aggravate Bleed built into it, 10%. And 10% doesn't sound like that much, but all it has to do is proc one time, and then all the existing bleeds become aggravated.
Obviously, it's only going to choose the highest damage bleed to, you know, actually take damage, but the game knows the bleeds that have been procced on the target. TLDR, you just need a little bit of aggravate bleed chance to get the full damage mileage, assuming you have any amount of attack speed. If you're playing a really slow hitting thing, then you'll probably want more % chance, or I guess you could play the Gladiator for this Ascendance, for that kind of build, like, you know, some kind of like Earthquake, bleed type slow attacks playstyle, but it just seems really weird, and it almost seems unintended how these things kind of like work, but I mean, that's how it's all written, but weird, basically. Gladiator sucks. That's TLDR. Gladiator sucks for bleed. And then, what do we got here? Speaking of the bleeding stuff, I'll show you on the tree. So on like some of these, like, one of the new strongest wheels that they added in the game is this one. It's like a bleeding crit chance wheel, but the numbers are so high on this wheel that it kind of doesn't make sense. It's like, this build isn't even a bleed build, for example. This one stood out to me a lot. But like with the mastery, as you can see, this wheel on this build, this isn't a bleed build. Like, look at the DPS gain on this thing. It's like almost 10% damage per point. That is actually like absurd levels, you know, like even at like 6-7% damage per point, it's like actually insane. But this thing is like, you know, on some builds 9-10% more damage per point. It also gives you bleed chance, crit chance, and, you know, like I said, this build is going to hit really fast hits with both weapons, but it gives 100 and what is that, 190% chance to crit, and it gives you 30 crit multi. It enables bleed. Like, this whole cluster is like nuts for any physical crit kind of build. This isn't a bleed centric thing build, but like, this is a bleed centric themed wheel. I don't know, it's weird how strong that note is. This wheel's absurd, really, really strong. Then for what I'm thinking about playing, something along the lines of, like, I've been looking at a lot of Dual Strike Earth Shatter. Earth Shatter, because they added a bunch of new exert stuff. I'd like to play something like that, even if it's not like top of the food chain. I think it'll be pretty good. I think it might even be like pretty high up there, but Dual Strike is the obvious one. Dual Strike was absurd last league, it's still absurd this league. I think this time we're playing Dual Strike as Fizz. You can pretty much play it as any elemental type, but Fizz looks good with Bloodthirst. They buff the life values of stuff, so Blood Magic, huge life amp. We play Petrified Blood, we low life it. We're really tanky, we're playing Jug. Big damage from Bloodthirst, Paradoxica, Pure Fizz. Pretty straightforward gearing. Damage numbers look really good, even with, like, you know, decent level gear. And then Earthshatter also looks really good. Earthshatter on a Juggernaut, both of these are Juggernaut. Keep in mind Earthshatter is like a skill that hits like 4 times a hit, pretty much. You get 3 spikes on average that should hit the single target, so this would be like, you know, 13.5 million DPS from spikes, and then the initial hit also 6.5 million, so it's like 20 million DPS with this gear level. Nothing super insane, but this gear is pretty good. This is like a good level gear, but 20 million on a Jug is pretty nuts. So I might play some kind of Earthshatter type stuff to start, and if I don't like it enough, I'll play Dual Strike, something like that maybe. Gearing on both of these builds, nothing is too absurd, weird, RNG, whatever. This gear is pretty obtainable. Kind of hard to sim all these numbers on Earthshatter because so many new things came into the game and they're not actually in POBs. So like Overexert Gem, Auto Exert Gem, you know, the Earthshatter buff is like, even before Earthshatter was pretty decent skill, decent to good territory. So a double buff and then new gems on it should make it pretty good. I kind of want to play one of these slam things, so I'll probably do Earthshatter. I think for other people who, you know, Earthshatter's kind of cooked, you got to kind of like that kind of gameplay, but I think generically, if you just want to try out some like melee stuff, it might be like Ground Slam of, was it like Earth something? I know a lot of people have been looking at this skill, Ground Slam of Earth Shaking. There's nothing that special about it other than it has like it's like a giant AoE Earth Ground Slam thing. So they double buff this skill along with like Earth Shatter. So this skill might be more satisfying, I think, for most people to play, but it's kind of might be mid on the single target, but almost everything I've looked at pretty much with reasonable gear gets around 20 million DPS without too much like craziness to it, but maybe like a little bit lower on the Ground Slam, but looks probably the most newer player friendly would probably be Ground Slam. I haven't really looked at it too much, but I've seen some of the POBs other people have done for this skill, but I'm probably not playing it. I like Earth Shatter. I think I'm gonna do Earth Shatter. It has like the crazy damage effectiveness numbers because it hits so many times. And yeah, I keep looking at my POBs and fine-tuning them. I'll probably put the POBs for this. This shit, none of this shit is like fully final or done, but it's kind of hard to do any of that, make anything final when you can't actually test anything. So it's kind of refreshing. And then all these, like some of these new gems that we can't even mess with yet. So Earth Shatter, if I don't like it, I probably play some Dual Strike, or if something else jumps at me at some point, maybe like one of these Retaliation. I think the Crushing Fist skill gem might be really good, but we have no gem info on it. For the Gladiator or something, we'll see. But it's kind of where my headspace is with that. And I think that's probably about it, right? So if you want to look at the POBs or whatever, see kind of what's cooking, they're all work in progress, so that's about it. So thanks for watching, cool. GG. If you want more of this nonsense, let me know, because I don't normally make these. GG.